All right, welcome back. This is Joe Gilder from HomeStudioCorner.com, and today I want to talk about removing vocals. Now, that's something that you don't hear a whole lot, but I got a question from one of my readers asking, will you please share the methods of removing vocals from a song track? Is it possible with Pro Tools, and what are the best tools/methods for this? Well, that's a great question, and obviously there's not a lot of situations where you'll need to remove the vocal, but sometimes it may come up, and it's good to know how to do it. I had to do it recently, a few months back. A studio I was working for, it was kind of a studio/event facility, and they had a corporate party there from somewhere like Boston. So all these people from up in the Northeast were down in Nashville, and they wanted to have a good old Nashville time. So aside from just having the party there, they also opened up the studio and had me come in and bring up a couple of popular songs for them to come in and record to, basically. So, obviously, if I just downloaded, several country songs and put them in there, the vocal would be right there, and they'd be just singing on top of that, which isn't ideal. And we didn't feel like going out and finding karaoke tracks for these country songs. It was just kind of a fun little gag we wanted to do. Didn't want to spend a bunch of time going out and finding karaoke songs that were recorded without the vocal so we could have them record to it. So, what did we do? We just got the regular original versions of the songs and just removed the vocal. So it was it was an interesting night, to say the least. But let me show you how I did it. So here we've got Garth Brooks' Friends in Low Places, which I was going to just use one of my songs, but it seems easier to show you it this way and show you that it actually does work. Okay, so here's the song on a track in Pro Tools. Blame it all on my room. Okay, so we all know the song. That was one of the ones they wanted to sing at the country party. So what do? Well, we've got it here on a stereo track. The first thing we need to do is to split this out to two mono tracks. So we come up to track, and we have to select the track, come up here to track, and split to mono. So now we've got the left signal and the right signal. So for now, we're going to mute this first track, so we've just got the left and right. Blame it all on my room. Okay, still sounds exactly the same. The first thing we want to do is, one of the things we have to sacrifice with removing a vocal is we have to sacrifice anything stereo. So we need to come in and make these both panned to the middle. Now you can drag this over to 0, or in Pro Tools, if we hold down Option on the Mac or Alt on the PC and just click on pan, it'll jump to 0 for you. So now we've got a mono signal. Blame it all on my room. Okay, still sounds roughly the same. Now what we need to do is flip the phase, or flip the polarity of one of the two. So we'll come down to this one, and we'll just put a simple EQ plugin on here. And that little button right there flips the polarity. So now both sides should be out of phase with each other, and it's going to sound pretty bad. So as you can hear, the vocal's pretty much gone. It's been distorted, it's not been distorted, but it's been removed. And but now you've got all those weird artifacts left over from the reverb they used. Now, some tracks aren't as easy as others to remove the vocal, but there's still another step we need to do. We need to nudge one of these tracks forward a bit so we don't, will actually make it sound a little bit better, the total sound of the mix. So the way we nudge is we come up here to this nudge value here, and we set it to 1 sample. Now, it may default to being in minutes and seconds or whatever, but you just select samples here and select 1 sample. Now, if we zoom way in on this track, we can nudge this forward by using the plus and minus keys on our keyboard. So if I press plus, you'll see this is jumping over by 1 sample at a time. So we're going to move this over, say 2 samples, and see how that affects the sound. Blame it all on my roots. I showed up in booze. Okay, let's try just 1 sample, see how that sounds. Blame it all on my roots. I showed up in booze and ruined your black tie. The last one to know, the last one to show. Toasted you, said honey, baby. So the thing to keep in mind with vocal removing, you can buy little boxes that'll remove the vocal. I think there's even plugins out there you can buy that'll do it, and that's all they're doing. They're just making a copy of the signal and then flipping the polarity and then just delaying one of the signals by just a few samples until it sounds about right. Now, you'll never completely remove the vocal. That's like saying I'm going to bake a loaf of bread and then I would like to, after the fact, go in and remove the yeast or remove a certain ingredient or the egg. That just doesn't happen. You can't go back in once it's done. But you can knock it down quite a bit. So now, as you can see, if there's somebody singing over the top of this vocal, it's going to work fairly well. Now, the other trick, if you're doing this in Pro Tools and you've got more flexibility than most, you'll notice, obviously, when you're doing all this flipping polarities and all the phase issues that are going to come up, you're going to lose some of the bass. So take a listen here. So the bass is pretty much gone, as opposed to on this track. But you'll never hear me complain, 'cause I got friends in... Okay, so there's plenty of bass there. Now, if you want to get some of that back into it, come back up to this original track and put an EQ plugin on here and roll off all the high end and just play the low bass stuff. So we'll come in with this single band EQ, and we're going to roll everything, basically everything below the vocal, or including the vocal and above, will get rolled off, and we'll just have the bottom end. So if we listen to it now... So there's very little vocal in that now. Now, if we blend that back in with the rest of the track, we're going to find there's going to be a little more bass. Okay, so now we've effectively removed the vocal, and it's plenty low, so now if we sang over the top of that, would be fine. Remove the vocal, and we've also still reintroduced some of the bass back into the track. Now all we would have to do is, if you're needing to record something, just come in and create a new track and record the new vocal, or you could just bounce this out as a new stereo file with the vocal removed, and you're good from there. So that's how to remove a vocal from a country song, but the same principle applies to pretty much any song where the vocal is centered in the middle of the mix. You should be able to at least knock it down a little bit if that ever comes up. Again, I'm Joe Gilder from HomeStudioCorner.com. Hope this was helpful, and we'll see you around soon.